All right, let's get into it. We're about to break down a book on project management that's almost 50 years old. Now, you might be thinking, 50 years? What could that possibly teach me? Well, it turns out everything. Its ideas are more critical now than they've ever been, and they explain exactly why so many modern projects just completely fall apart.
I mean, you've got to love this quote from the author, Fred Brooks himself. He's basically saying, yeah, my book is famous, but famous doesn't mean people actually listen to it. It's this collection of wisdom that seems so obvious once you hear it, but for some reason it's just incredibly difficult to stick to in the real world.
So, where did all this legendary wisdom come from? Well, this wasn't some academic theory dreamed up in an ivory tower. No, this was forged in the fire of one of the biggest, most complicated software projects of its day.
So this is our guy, Fred Brooks. Back in the 60s, he was the manager for IBM's OS/360 project, a truly gigantic operating system for a whole new line of computers. And you can just feel the pain in his words. Educational, albeit very frustrating. That frustration, that trial by fire, is what gave birth to this entire book.
And just look at these problems. Sound familiar? Yeah, they should. This wasn't just a small stumble. The project was in deep trouble by almost every measure. It was late, it was bleeding money, and the first version just didn't work very well. This whole massive, painful mess forced Brooks to ask a really fundamental question. Why is building software so unbelievably hard to get right?
And his journey for an answer led him to this one core idea. An idea that managers loved because it was so simple, but an idea that was built on a deeply flawed assumption. An idea that gives the book its famous title, The Mythical Man Month.
The Man Month. On the surface, it seems totally logical, right? It's a unit of effort. If one person can do a job in 10 months, then hey, 10 people should be able to do it in 1 month. It makes people and time seem like they're totally interchangeable, like cups of flour in a recipe. But as Brooks found out the hard way, that's not just a little bit wrong, it's a dangerous myth.
Okay, so let's put ourselves right in that situation. You're the manager, the project is behind, the deadline is screaming towards you, and your boss is breathing down your neck. You have to do something, now. What's the first thing you think of? What's the lever you pull?
Of course, you throw more people at the problem. It's the knee-jerk reaction, it looks like you're taking decisive action, it feels like the right thing to do, it is the most common-sense solution in the world, and it is almost always the wrong one. And this leads us to the single most famous, most powerful, most quoted idea from the entire book. It's a law that takes that common-sense solution and flips it completely upside down.
And there it is, Brooks's Law. This is the heart and soul of the book. Adding people to a software project that's already late doesn't just not help, it makes it even later. So how is that possible? Why does that happen?
Well, Brooks breaks it down into 3 big reasons. First, you've got ramp-up time. The new folks, they don't know anything about the project, so who has to train them? Your absolute best, most productive people. They stop working on the actual project and start teaching. Second, and this is the killer, communication overhead. And third, some jobs just can't be divided. It's like Brooks's famous line, 9 women can't make a baby in 1 month.
Let's really hammer on that communication point, because this is where it gets crazy. It doesn't grow in a straight line, it explodes exponentially. So, a small team of 5 people, they have 10 different communication paths to manage. Okay, doable. But a team of 50? You get this? A jaw-dropping 1,225 potential lines of communication. The time you spend just keeping everyone on the same page goes through the roof, and real work just grinds to a halt.
And believe it or not, Brooks's Law is just the tip of the iceberg. The whole book is just packed with these little gems of wisdom that are just as powerful. Let's run through a few more real quick.
First up is the second system effect. You can think of this as the difficult second album for projects. Your first system gets built lean because you're just fighting to get it out the door. But that success makes you overconfident. So for the second system, you try to cram in every single idea and feature you had to cut from the first one. And what happens? It becomes bloated, over-engineered, and probably late. So what's the fix for that? This is brilliant. Brooks says, plan to throw one away. Now, that sounds incredibly wasteful, right? But it's not. It's about being realistic. It's accepting that your first real attempt at something new is basically a prototype, a learning experience. You build it, you find all its flaws, you learn your lessons, and then you build the real one, the smart one, the one you actually ship to customers. And finally, his famous essay, No Silver Bullet. This is so relevant today.
Just like back then, we're always looking for that magic fix, that one new technology, that one new AI tool, that one management trend that's going to make everything 10 times easier overnight. And Brooks's point is simple. It doesn't exist. The truly hard part of development is the thinking, the designing, the communication, and no tool's ever going to make that easy.
So let's bring this all home. Why are we still talking about a book written when bell-bottoms were cool? Because frankly, we're still tripping over the same hurdles. We are still making the exact same mistakes 50 years later.
At the end of the day, Brooks is all about this massive mindset shift. We have to move from the myth to the reality. We have to stop pretending that complex creative work can be neatly divided like digging a ditch. We need to measure progress by actual, concrete milestones, not just hours spent in a chair. And we have to burn this into our brains. More people doesn't equal more speed. It equals more complexity.
This is another one of my favorite quotes from the book, because it's just so painfully true. Giant project disasters rarely happen because of one big explosion. No, they happen slowly. They're the result of hundreds of tiny delays, tiny compromises, one day at a time, until you wake up and realize you are hopelessly, hopelessly behind.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, but with a new perspective. So I'll leave you with this question. Your project is falling behind. The pressure is on. Knowing what you know now, what's your first move? Because how you answer that question could be the difference between repeating the mistakes of the past 50 years or finally learning from them.